A Child is Born, A Beginner's Guide to Nativity Stories by Amy Jill Levine. This is the Epilogue. The Epilogue, continuing the story. The stories of Moses, Miriam, and Aaron, Amram and Jochebed, even of Pharaoh's daughter, continue both in the Bible and in post-biblical literature. Three of my favorites concern, respectively, Jochebed, the biological mother who gave birth to, gave up, and then gave milk to Moses; Batia, Pharaoh's daughter, who raised the baby as her own in violation of her father's commands; and finally, baby Moses himself. According to the Midrash known as Deuteronomy Rabbah, when the time came, at age 120, for Moses to die, he pleaded that his life be spared on behalf of his mother, who was still alive. Why, asks Moses, should his mother suffer not just the death of two of her children, Aaron and Miriam, died during the Israelites' 40 years in the wilderness, but also the death of her third? I have, thank heaven, never suffered the loss of a child, but I have friends who have. My mother miscarried several times before I was born, and I am an only child. When I was pregnant with Sarah, my mother sat me down and warned me about what could happen, not to frighten me, I already knew the possibilities of miscarriage, but to reassure me. One will always grieve the loss, whether of children who never took a breath or children who die before their parents, but one can live on in memory of that loss, just as one in the Jewish tradition says, "To those who mourn, may their memory be for a blessing." We can live in a way that honors the dead. Moses' prayer in the Midrash was not granted, and he dies before his mother. According to another Midrash, Seder Alam Rabbah 9, Jochebed enters the Promised Land. She carried the legacy of her children with her. The second Midrash concerns Pharaoh's daughter, who receives in later Jewish tradition the name Batia, sometimes spelled Bithia, which means daughter of God. You may be familiar with the term bat mitzvah, literally daughter of the commandment. Leviticus Rabbah 1:3 describes the origins of the name. God tells Pharaoh's daughter that because she raised Moses as her son, although he was not her biological son, so she will be known as my daughter, God's daughter, although she is not God's biological daughter. Less fancifully, the name may derive from one of those seemingly endless genealogies in the book of 1 Chronicles, which mentions the sons of Ezra, Jether, Mered, Epher, and Jalon. These are the sons of Bithia, daughter of Pharaoh, whom Mered married, and she conceived and bore Miriam, Shammai, and Ishbah, father of Eshtemoa. 1 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 17. Here are three of several reasons why this genealogy intrigues me. First, what is the daughter of Pharaoh doing married to a Jew? Technically, a Judite man. The text looks like it is reporting an intermarriage, such as the marriage generations previously of Joseph to Asenath, the daughter of the Egyptian priest Potiphera. Second, why does this Egyptian woman have a Hebrew name? Or, for that matter, why does Moses and Miriam, and probably Aaron as well, along with Phinehas and Hophni, have Egyptian names? Do we understand them differently if we see their families as having assimilated? Third, who is this other Miriam in the genealogy? Was she named after Moses' sister, as Mary, the mother of Jesus, Mary Magdalene, Mary, the sister of Martha, and all the other first-century Jewish Marys may have been? As for Batia, Midrash Tashi includes a list of numerous Gentile women who entered paradise. Along with Batia are Hagar, Sifra, and Puah, Asenath, the wife of Joseph, Zipporah, the wife of Moses, Rahab, the prostitute from Jericho who protected the Israelite spies, and Jael, the wife of Heber, the Kenite who aids Deborah, the prophet, during the period of the judges. Like the Gentile Magi who come to greet baby Jesus, the newborn King of the Jews. So these Gentile women are mediators between the two communities. The Jewish tradition of the righteous Gentile teaches that Jews do not have a lock on divine care. that godliness can be manifested by anyone, regardless of ethnicity or gender, and people outside our community can also function as role models. One need not convert to Judaism in order to be righteous. Jews, in general, did not think that Gentiles needed to become Jews in order to live a moral life or be in a right relationship with God. This perspective is shared by most ethnic groups. Most Canadians, U.S. citizens, and Mexicans do not think that only they are moral or beloved by God. Thus, Jews can honor, respect, and find to be moral exemplars those who are not Jews. Jesus would, I think, hold the same perspective, as we see with his interaction with Gentiles such as the Syrophoenician woman of Mark 7, the centurion in Matthew 8 and Luke 7, and the people at the feeding of the 4,000. The third midrash from Exodus Rabbah 1:26 concerns baby Moses. When Pharaoh's daughter receives Moses back from his biological mother and announces that she is going to raise him in the palace, the court magicians, we can think of them as political advisors whose job it is to read the signs of the times, suggest that the baby is a danger. It doesn't take a magician to arrive at this determination. Moses was a Hebrew, and the magicians likely feared that he would ally himself with his own people, now enslaved and oppressed. Pharaoh had already expressed his fears that the Hebrews will increase and, in the event of war, join our enemies. Exodus chapter 1, verse 10. The magicians, as court employees, do well to parrot the fears of their leader. One of the magicians proposes a test. Put in front of the baby a pot of hot coals and a pot of jewels, and see which one he touches. If he goes for the jewels, then he is danger and should be dispatched. If he goes for the coals, he is not a danger. The test is set up, and the baby, as might be expected, reaches for the shiny jewels. But Gabriel, yes, that Gabriel, pushes the child's hand toward the coals. Moses burns his fingers, which he then puts to his lips, and that's how he comes to have a speech impediment. See Exodus chapter 4, verse 10. A child is born. According to the internet, a child is born every 8 seconds. There's a website that gives the countdown of the number of births in the world per month. It's a lot. Thus, to say a child is born is same old, except to the child's parents, for whom this birth is something distinct, special, remarkable. The births of Isaac and Ishmael, Moses, Samson, Samuel, John, and Jesus are all distinct, special, and remarkable. So are the births of Hagar and Sarah, Jochebed and Miriam, Mrs. Manoah, Hannah and Peninnah, and their daughters, even if the Bible does not record their stories. Advent is the time when we read about the baby Jesus. It can also be a time when we tell what stories we have of our own parents, what they or others told us about our births, our first memories, our first fears or joys. These are stories that can be shared with friends or passed down to children and grandchildren, or any in the next generations. Advent is thus not just a time to anticipate the future. It is like the Jewish New Year, also a time to remember and to know that we are remembered.